Overtown was a very interesting community, a lot going on, and it was very vibrant. There were all sorts of businesses, lots of people, activity well into the evenings. The folk that I would see who took care of almost all of our needs were folk who looked like me. And it made me kind of feel that we kind of had it going on.
I have actually known Dr. Adams all of my life. My first recollection of him as a small child was when he was returning from college and starting medical school. I asked him what type of doctor he wanted to be, and he told me that he wanted to become a gynecologist obstetrician, and I asked him whether he would deliver my children, which he ultimately did.
The church was then, and in many ways is even to this day, second home. That is where much of the nurturing and the foundational pillars of who I am today really were established. So the church was really a big deal for me coming up, and to this day it still is a big deal.
St. John has been a pillar of Overtown since its founding in 1906. St. John has also bridged the gap between the haves and the have-nots, and where we are able to meet on common ground and be able to become in community with one another.
1906 was when the church was organized. It was in a previous location not far from here, and then that congregation grew in such a tremendous way that they purchased this property and built this church. By the way, it was built by the architects McKessick and McKessick, whose grandchildren built the Museum of African American History in Washington, D.C. St. John was a hub for everything Overtown, everything Miami. St. John Church and St. John CDC has been in the forefront of every significant happening in Overtown.
St. John CDC was founded by Reverend Henry Nevin, the then pastor of St. John Baptist Church. He had lived in Philadelphia and had seen some of the activities that church groups were involved in, and a lot of that centered around community development, specifically housing. And he introduced to the church in 1985 this notion of us having a community development corporation.
He wanted to ensure that some of the original residents of Overtown became lifelong members of the community, and so the church got involved as a mission to create quality, affordable housing for the residents and the families of Overtown. The people that were chosen to become board members of the CDC were people who were already established within the church and the community and who had a desire to make a contribution to the legacy and the history of Overtown. Fortunately, we had some people like Dr. Adams that were a part of the original core.
I feel that he was chosen because Reverend Nevin started the Community Development Corporation, and he came back after he finished his studies as a doctor, and he set up his second practice here and remained. And I think that was something that the Lord had for him to do.
Well, I tell you, Dr. Adams is a phenomenal individual. I assumed the interim executive director's position after an emergency board meeting, and the first person I had to work with the CDC in official capacity was Dr. Adams, and I tell you, he's a trailblazer, and he's just a visionary leader. You look at what the CDC is and where it's come in its history, and to this day, under the leadership of Dr. Adams over the years, the CDC is happy to have over 129 units, affordable rental housing units, Currently another 19 under development, which will bring the total to 148 by year's end, as well as the signature project, the St. John Plaza, which will be a state-of-the-art 90-unit facility.
A very tangible and visible accomplishment that I know Doc is proud of, and I'm proud of as well, is that this particular project, okay, the St. John Plaza, is finally coming to fruition.
Scripture says where there's no vision, the people perish. And the vision that I've had was really to see the St. John Plaza come to fruition. That's a beautiful facility that's almost complete. And I'm just so excited about that. And in many ways, this represents the signature piece for the St. John CDC. And I think it's kind of the assignment, if you will, that I had. When I started out as chair, I had hoped that one day I'd be able to see this come to fruition. And thanks be to God, looks like that is the case.
Well, first of all, for the St. John CDC organization, he is legend, and he's going to definitely leave his mark, not just in the CDC community, but in Overtown.
Oh, he's done a lot in Overtown. They've built and rehabbed many units in the Overtown area, and has really transformed that area. I think that the residents are enjoying now coming home to a place that they can be proud of.
You know, the CDC has done a lot. First of all, it's one of the oldest CDCs in Overtown. It's also been there and been supportive of other organizations, other CDCs, and organizations that also help to lift up the overall economic base of the community. The Overtown Youth Center is one of those entities that we like to partner with. There's a walk that occurs every year in Overtown called Walk a Mile with a Child that the Black medical group called the James Wilson Bridges Medical Society does. The CDC has been very instrumental in helping with that. This is the St. John Institutional Missionary Baptist Church. By the way, I've been a member of that church since 1963. The very first project that the St. John CDC did. And we wanted to make sure that the folk who have historically been in Overtown had a place to stay. So we're real happy that we're doing this, and the new construction continues that legacy. This is the historic Lyric Theater. This was the place. You talk about the Apollo in Harlem. The Lyric was like the Apollo here in Miami, Florida, in downtown Overtown, the historic Lyric Theater.
The Walk a Mile with My Child piece that we were involved in was a chance for us to go arm in arm with our supporters and say, you know, we want to have a more successful, safe environment. You know, and Nelson was at the heart of it. It was a big deal. We knew that if it was that important to him, that it had to be important to us too.
I joined the organization 13 years ago. I've seen the struggles the organization has overcome, and there were times we didn't know if we were going to be able to continue and keep our doors open. And we had to reach out to him, and maybe he won't want me to say this, but to meet payroll. And he came through every time that we went through these phases, different phases. Without his commitment to the organization, we wouldn't have gotten, to the point that we're at. The organization has rested on his shoulders. Reverend Nevin is one of those people, Walter Dennis. There are several people, but he, to me, is the organization rested on his shoulders for a very long time.
He loved this community, and he stayed right here in it with people who didn't have homes and children who didn't really have food. So he took this task on to try to better and have affordable housing. And I watched him many times on the board and I prayed for her.
I've been on the other side of this also because I worked with Miami-Dade Housing Agency. So I was actually responsible for funding St. John CDC for some of their projects. And it was only until years later that I was asked to serve on the board. And he's just always worked so diligently to make sure we implement the proper programs, some healthcare programs, educational programs, housing programs. The Walk a Mile with a Child, he made sure he did it in Overtown because he wanted the people of Overtown to receive all of the benefits and all of the exposure to all of these things that the rest of the community, the rest of Miami-Dade has the pleasure of experiencing.
The greatest thing that Overtown has benefited from the CDC would be the fact that the history and legacy of the original Overtown is being preserved through the St. John CDC.
Oh my gosh, there's so many ways that the CDC helps the Overtown community. Number one, I used to live here in Overtown, and the first thing they do is they provide a scholarship for those who are living in this area so that they can become more than what this environment has to offer. It allows us to get a college education to shoot for the stars and accomplish our dreams.
Well, the scholarship has helped me because it helped me pay for those dreadfully expensive books, college life, and it helped take off a little bit of the stress that I had to worry about paying for school and school accessories and everything like that. They give people affordable housing around our community, and Miami expensive is very high. And I see how they give out scholarships. They have organizations to help build our community because Overtown needs it.
He himself is the embodiment of Miami, right? I mean, you know, he's a very celebrated OBGYN. And a lot of the different people that know him from that perspective really respect him because of his medical profession.
At one point in time, everybody used to say he delivered most of all the black babies here in Miami-Dade County. As a matter of fact, he delivered my granddaughter. And I was right there to cut the cord. So.
He just has endless energy, and he's just dedicated to making not only Miami, but the world a better place to be because of his humanity.
I have to smile because my first time meeting Dr. Adams, he was just saying, they were like, Dr. Adams, you don't sleep. And he says, sleeping is for the dead people. And he is such a hardworking man.
Dr. Adams is a great man. He's very humble. You know, he could brag about a lot of things he's done, but he doesn't do it. And he really cares about his community because, honestly speaking, how busy his schedule is, I sometimes don't even know how he's able to come to the meetings, the board member meetings, but he does it. You can tell that this man is really dedicated to his community. And it's hard to find that nowadays, especially in this type of community. Once you leave, it's like, yeah, whatever.
It's important for people to understand that in order for you to contribute to a community that you grew up in, you should take whatever knowledge that you've learned and bring it back to that space. So to watch Dr. Adams go away, earn his college degrees, come back to this community and provide professional service, and then choose to make his personal time available to make improvements in the neighborhood and sacrifice the money that he could make, I think is important for all of us to really take heed of that.
As a young man who was raised from the Overtown area, he came back and he just tirelessly gave back to that particular community, and that's something you have to respect him for because he does not have to come back. A lot of us have come back, and I like to say that he is one of our Jackson generals like myself who have come back to this community. So I'm just happy to have him alongside with me.
Since I knew his mother and his father, and I know they are looking down and saying, well done, Nelson.
First of all, I recognize clearly that to whom much is given, much is required, and I've been given much. And not only am I tall, dark, and handsome, but I understand that it's important that you never walk around thinking that it's all about you. It is God's favor on my life that has allowed me to do the things that I have done, and I'm just warming up, folks.
For me, I think it's this common way he ends everything, which is good, better, best. You know, and he always talks about, you know, it's great to be good, you know, and to do your best until you can do better, or something like that.
So if you know Dr. Adams, one of the things he always says is good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good is better and your better, best.
Good, better, best. Never, ever let it rest until your good is your better and your better is your best.
Yeah, good, better, best, never let it rest until your good becomes better and your better becomes your best.
Good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good is better and your better becomes your best.
What is it? It's good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good becomes your better and your better becomes your best. I think that's it.
Here we go. Good, better, best. Never, ever let it rest, not until your good becomes your better and your better becomes your best.